Welcome back to Pirates live stream this evening. I am joined by Jacques Broodryk, Afriforum's campaign manager, award-winning journalist, filmmaker. You have quite the resume, Jacques. And the reason why you're here tonight, while we're talking, is Afriforum is busy with a documentary series. I think it's titled 8 Levels of Control Towards a Socialist State, or to get to a socialist state. And one of the episodes is specifically in reference to guns and gun control. But I think maybe, tell us a bit more about this documentary series, how you got there. What do the 8 levels of control actually mean? The floor is yours, sir.
Thank you very much for having me, Gideon. It's an absolute pleasure, and good evening to all the viewers. So it's very interesting. I'm sure a lot of people would have seen this theory do the rounds on social media. It's kind of made a re-emergence over the last couple of months. And it pretty much stipulates 8 levels or sectors that a government needs to get complete control over in order to implement socialism in a democratic state. And those 8 levels include things such as healthcare. They need to, complete control over healthcare. They need to increase the debt levels in the country. They need to increase gun control. There's a whole list there, 8 different levels like that. And what's very interesting about it is if you look at the theory and you look at those 8 levels, you can literally just tick the boxes the way government has been acting the last couple of years. It's literally like, okay, gun control, there we go. Nationalize healthcare, okay, yeah, increase debt, yeah, you can literally go through the whole list like that.
So I was about to say abolish private property in essence, which EWC would be. They're going after pensions. Yeah, exactly.
One of the levels is welfare, which is also taking control of people's housing and obviously taking control of their income. We know that the amount of recipients who receive social grants in South Africa has increased by roughly 16 million in the last 27 years. So it's pretty scary. But gun control, very relevant at this stage. Very interesting topic to talk about.
I was about to say, from everything that you've just briefly told me is, okay, we're aware of NHI. We're very much aware of EWC that pertains to all private property, not just land. So, in a broader interpretation, that would be intellectual property, that would be financial property, whether it be shares or stocks that a private person holds, private individual holds, their savings in the bank, those sorts of things, the companies they run. We're talking about welfare. I mean, hasn't lockdown just been a great way to increase people dependent on welfare by a great number? And we're talking about universal basic income grant, which is essentially nothing other than the government's money printer being switched on to fund that project. But I mean, that in itself, I mean, I'm going to watch this documentary and my interest is piqued. So I would recommend everyone else do the same thing. But what we're really talking about is the one that's specific to this channel, and it's the gun control angle. And I was, fine brag, I was fortunate. I think you guys interviewed a segment with me, but I'm not the only person you talk to. And I would gather there's quite a bit of research that went into this. Without spoiling it, are there any juicy parts of the gun control angle that you'd like to leak to the audience?
I think it's nothing specifically juicy.
If you can.
Those of us who've been fighting this fight, you and I have been in the front lines in garnering support and getting commentary, and people in the farm community who've been following this would be aware of most of these stats. We just try to put it forward and tell the story in a way that people can see that there's a definite agenda behind it. And I mean, this is clear, right? We know this. Every time the Minister of Police clearly goes onto the news channel, he thumbsucks statistics. He comes up with numbers that do not fit his own department's research or their official crime stats. He just makes stuff up. I don't know where he gets it from, and when people start getting into such desperate measures, you have to start questioning why. If you cannot honestly debate and honestly tell us why you have an issue with law-abiding citizens being able to protect themselves, you need to make up lies to try and get your point across, then you have to question why. and then unfortunately get into the murky territory of what's the real reason behind it.
Yeah.
So we just try to tell this story in an interesting way, putting the facts there. And we interviewed quite a few interesting people, quite a few firearm activists, and we also spoke to Paul Oxley. We spoke to Dr. Peter Groenewald from the Freedom Front Plus, who's also very strongly opposed against this.
Good guy, yeah.
And we also, another great person we interviewed was a guy named Henny Niemand, who's a farmer, who had to defend himself and his 2-year-old daughter against an attacker armed with a stolen police-issued firearm. So we just bring that point over again, that even though government's spewing this nonsense that it's law-abiding citizens' fault that there's a crime, that gun crimes are committed in the country, it's not the fact. And we really try and bring that point home.
Yeah, and I mean, the other part that's really interesting is the fact that they actually paid taxpayer money, to commission a research project in 2014, and I think that you and I spoke about this. The result of that research project went contrary to their agenda. So what did they do? They hid it for 6 years, and the only way that we got it out of them was to threaten them with court action and a whole bunch of access of information requests. And we still get it to this day. I mean, I get asked the question on gun forums all the time. It's like, yeah, but why doesn't the government understand? And I said, put the brakes. It's not that the government doesn't understand that gun control isn't helpful. They fully understand it's not helpful. Their agenda is just 180 degrees opposed to you owning guns, and they're not interested in a enlightened discussion about it. And ultimately, the only thing that has stopped them from steamrolling you and railroading amendments through is civil activism, either like people being involved, like gun owners associations. Afriforum is a great ally in this fight. I mean, you guys have been swinging heavy sledgehammers at what they've been trying to do for a long time, and you've been especially on point over the past like recent while. And I think traditionally this isn't a fight that was always Afriforum's fight. I know a couple of years ago I had a discussion, an informal one with Magnus, I think about certain things, and he said, look, he understands, but at this stage that's not really Afriforum's focus. It was, you guys were more focused at the time on broader civil rights. That's changed clearly in a big way, because I'd say you are definitely a leader in this fight. Was there anything specific within Afriforum that brought it, or was it a natural evolution to saying, okay, but you see gun rights as not only a part of civil rights, but as the thing that protects the rest of it?
I don't think there was something that specifically changed any direction. I think the thing is, we always try and play by the rules. We try and keep the moral high ground, even though we get slated a lot for things that we didn't do. We always try and take that approach. So we'll always first try the courts, we'll try doing things the proper way. So I think in 2018, when the leaked draft report came out the first time, that said, look, you won't be able to allow to own a firearm for self-defense. A lot of people were actively going, what the hell's happening? And government came out and said, no, wait, it's just a leaked report. Just, sorry, don't get upset. It's not the final version. And what else can you do at that stage, except say, okay, fine, let's wait for the leaked version, for the final version to actually come out. And now we've seen it. And now we've seen that these guys are serious about disarming law-abiding citizens based on falsehoods, and that cannot be allowed.
Yeah, no, that's. I think that was a major turning point for a lot of people. I mean, we have Afriforum, we had the Institute of Race Relations, the Free Market Foundation. I forgot the number of civil society organizations that came on board on this, and it's heartening because you can see how broad it cuts. But a couple of years ago, a friend of mine, Craig Gadd, he wrote several pieces about South African gun owners being at the front line, in the struggle against communism. I suppose a softer and possibly more accurate title would have been in the struggle against socialism, because that would be your first rational step is the social society that your documentary is about. We're all dependent upon the state for everything. I think the only difference between socialism and communism in practice is actually is a time frame.
Once you get onto that slippery slope of getting people dependent on the state and state control, it's not going to stop. You're going to go from socialism to communism very quickly. Politicians are power hungry and insanely addicted to power, and once they taste unfettered power, they never give it up. This the true history has shown us time and time again. So, I get what you're saying, but I think you might as well use the two terms interchangeably. Because, yeah, that's where it's going to head. Yeah.
No, that's a fair point, especially since, well, in order to push things like this through, and it used to be a very much conspiracy theory territory where you say, okay, but disarming the population, what are citizens with guns going to do against the government? I'm like, well, about 2 or 3 weeks ago, we saw how absent the state security apparatus is. How I think we got a taste, we got a snapshot, cross-sectional, of the size of the security vacuum, because the government just isn't there to fill it. And we also got a cross-sectional snapshot of what armed, coordinated citizens across racial and cultural and religious and language barriers were capable of achieving. I think any person that says that armed citizens are incapable of resisting a tyrannical state are smoking really, really strong stuff. But from the documentary point of view, I don't know if it came in time for you guys to incorporate that, or how you view that living petri dish of KZN and Gauteng during the so-called insurrection, because I think we all know it wasn't really an insurrection.
Yeah, no, we definitely touch on it, and we use it as an everyday example as to why it's ludicrous to want to disarm law-abiding citizens. But I think you also touched on an interesting point there. People who are generally have this view that, what are law-abiding citizens with their rollies going to do against a well-armed defense force or police state? No, I don't want to go there. I don't want to even talk about things like that. Let's hope we never need to. But
yeah. And it's still hypothetical.
People clearly don't have the frame of reference that you and I have, and that other gun owners and people with a bit of security training or background have. Because I don't look at it as I'm going to have to fight the defense force or the police. I look at it as I'm going to have to get my family out of a burning neighborhood, which we saw happening in KZN now, or defend my property against the mob. That's how we look at these things realistically, and
which is far more realistic, to be honest. I mean, that's exactly what's happening.
So that argument is almost a straw man argument for me, because people who are pro gun owners don't come out saying like, I'm going to defend myself against the government and against the police force, and we're going to be outgunned for a while until things really get out of hand and people start smuggling in illegal stuff. But like I said, I don't want to even talk. I really pray we never get into a situation like that. But we look at it realistically. We look at what can happen, what has happened, what will happen again. So that argument is very much it's attacking a non-point almost, in my opinion.
Well, that's the thing. It's the same. It's based on the same basis as law-abiding citizens being somehow a primary source for criminals, pertaining firearms. When, and I don't know if we ever discussed this, but private security companies are obviously listed as civilian gun owners because their stuff is licensed under Section 20. Yes, my boy. Sorry, my dog loves interrupting my live streams. Including under that segment, Metro Police Services, Traffic Police, other parastatal and government departments like Parks Board, Eskom, Praza, that has a massive security division, and a good couple of the others, they are all licensed under Section 20, which means, in theory, those civilian losses are never separated from state losses as far as I'm aware, which means every time the Metro Police, every time Praza, every time Eskom, every time Parks Board loses guns, they are counted as civilian losses. Every time security companies, which have a different risk profile altogether than ordinary Joe Public, natural person Joe Public, gets robbed of a firearm, that counts as a civilian loss. People losing firearms negligently versus them being robbed of them or having them stolen by criminals also counts as losses. Those statistics only serve to inflate entirely inaccurately what the so-called real level of civilian losses are. Was that something you had the opportunity to touch on, and did you find anything interesting or along similar lines?
That's not a specific angle that we looked at, but it's very interesting, and it just brings the point home again that, so if that's the case, even with that taken into consideration, civilian losses are still a fraction compared to police firearms that get stolen or lost. I mean, I don't know how the police lose firearms, but so even if you take those inflated numbers and compare them, it's still not the problem. It's still not the weapons that get used in cash and transit heists and in hijackings and in so yeah, it's interesting, but it's something I'll definitely look into. I wasn't aware of that they counted it that way, but I'm not surprised.
It's something that we've speculated about for a long time, and very recently only obtained confirmation. But this is also it's a damning indictment to the lack of quality statistics in this country, and unsurprisingly, those statistics would necessarily be would be the responsibility of the police service. And I don't think there are many compliments about their administrative abilities presently. So it's hardly surprising, which again means the failure of the state leads to, innocent people being blamed, which assists in the driving of an agenda. So
exactly, yeah. It suits them. A lack of quality statistics suits them very well, because that's exactly how they operate. That's what they do. I mean, if you look at the whole DNA database, that absolute nightmare that's going on.
Show.
If they can't even take that seriously, why do you think they're going to bother taking statistics seriously? Yeah, even if
you may have a bit of an inside track here, because that actually ties in very much with what's been going on. So the DNA database went offline last year, I believe.
Yeah, I think it's been a year. Has it been more?
I think it was last year, June. So it's been more than a year then. And we were promised supposedly that, CETA, which is the state IT, whatever the hell they are, would essentially rebuild a system that would work just as well as the private sector one that they stopped paying for. And then I saw today from Action Society that there's 300,000 cases backlog now. We went up from like 178 cases to 3,000, and many more millions of pieces of forensic evidence just being in limbo. And people, like, that's potentially 300,000 rapists and murderers that are going to get away with it. What's going on, Jacques? Like,
I think you should ask that clown in the hat.
I don't think he's going to have any answers. Well, he's not going to have any answers that are going to be useful to us. But I mean,
he's probably going to blame. I'm guessing he's going to blame alcohol. He's going to say people need to social distance more, and he's going to blame civilian firearm owners for the DNA backlog. It's a joke, I mean, and it's extremely disappointing to see that a president like Cyril Ramaphosa, that some people took serious for a while, has disappointed the country like this. We put out a press statement the other day after he reshuffled his cabinet, and where I was quoted as saying that he's making a habit of disappointing South Africans. He's just going down the same trajectory of the ANC has been going down the last 27 years, and it's a real pity. But which just brings us back to the fact that our futures are in our own hands. People need to start organizing. They need to start doing as much as they can themselves. Obviously, Afriforum, that's one of our main aims. We try and get as self-sustainable as we can, if I put it that way, because we know we can't rely on government. And I think what the KZN riots and the Gauteng riots did recently was it woke a lot of people up to that. Like journalists who previously referred to Afriforum's neighborhood watchers as right-wing militias, we're now praising neighborhood watchers and CPFs for protecting their communities. So I think the penny has kind of dropped with a lot of people who might have been a bit naive about the severity of the situation.
Well, that's the thing, and I think that's something I actually wanted to ask you, and thank you for bringing it up. Is we saw a lot of community organization and orientation amongst each other. Those structures were in place. They were in place for a specific purpose, for example, which is to imbue existing law enforcement functions. That's what a neighborhood watch does. That was repurposed in time of this crisis to become almost like a sort of civil defense association or community safety organization, which then coordinated with other community safety organizations to provide stability, to provide healthcare, to provide security, to provide all these things, to actually go out and protect communities by forming a physical barrier of armed individuals, citizens. Obviously, the neighborhoods that had better structures had a much easier job than ones that had poor structures or non-existing ones. And my present neighborhood has a very poor structure, Jacques, or to almost non-existent, but there is at least something. If I wanted to follow the Afriforum model and say, I want to re-engineer what's going on, and I want to do it properly, where do I start with you guys? Let's say ordinary person in the comment section as well would like to take his neighborhood watch to that level.
Yeah. Well, what I think we do differently at Afriforum, and just to be clear, I'm not in charge of the neighborhood watches, and it's a whole different department, but I work together with these guys a lot, and it's something I'm passionate about. But I think what we do differently is we ensure that members of our neighborhood watches are trained. They do get training, how to handle certain situations, and also how to handle crime scenes and things like that, to make sure that evidence gets preserved so that the police can just let it lie in their locker rooms. But anyway, so the guys get trained well. It's not just a bunch of ragtag vigilantes like a lot of people would claim on Twitter. They're trained, they're well organized. We have, I think we have more than 163 neighborhood and farm watches countrywide. And those guys are all connected through a network of control rooms that we have countrywide. So it's a whole nationwide network of people sharing information, sharing threats, coordinating. So I think that's a big advantage. Something else we do as well is obviously because our Afriforum neighborhood watch members also join Afriforum. We also provide legal assistance in the case of a self-defense shooting, which can be a very, very strenuous and expensive thing. We've often seen situations where the police just try and pin it on someone without looking at the situation. So obviously that can be quite a big issue. So that's also a big motivation. The guys feel that they have that support, so they're not that scared to go out and actually do what they need to do to keep their neighborhood safe. So it comes down to training, organizing, and communicating. I think that's a big success. Obviously, we're always looking to expand our network. So anyone who's looking to join, if there's not an existing Afriforum network, a neighborhood watch network, you're more than welcome to start one. You can just go to our website. It's all the information is on our website. I know it's in Afrikaans, but there's an English option as well that will translate the whole website to you, and all the information will be on there.
That's fantastic. Okay, that'll be my first stop to try and get this thing up and running. I know you guys are expanding into the Western Cape a little bit, well, Cape Town specifically a bit, so that's good for me, and that will most certainly help. In essence, the great thing about having this network and these connections of all these connected control rooms is that I think what we saw, especially in KZN and in Soweto, is that actionable, reliable intelligence is a complete game changer. If you lack it, you are groping in the dark, and there are high levels of panic, uncertainty, lack of coordination, and wasted resources. Whereas if you've got reliable, actionable intelligence, everything changes.
And it's always been a game changer, but nowadays with the internet and WhatsApp, where you have so much misinformation, it's even more important and even more valuable, because how much nonsense gets spread around there as well nowadays. Quality, actionable intelligence is absolutely priceless.
Yeah, I think the misinformation about what happened in Phoenix, and to this day, I don't think we have a clear picture yet of exactly what's happened, because it's being politicized so much. Yeah. But the amount of complete unadulterated nonsense that I've seen circulate on WhatsApp about it, that isn't being called out, that no one is taking responsibility for, and that no one's retracting. In essence, what people who are ignoring that issue fail to understand is, if your neighborhood ends up in a similar situation, that can also be politicized. We can any neighborhood can be the next Phoenix, where you are vilified and called a bunch of racists, and no one gives you time to no one gives the truth time to come out. But that's why we're having a structure with SOPs, with control rooms, with coordination with other areas is so key, because everything is documented, and that makes a major difference.
It makes a major difference, and it's. I know a lot of people were shocked about this, and I know, especially in the Indian community, it was the way it was politicized was very shocking, and I can totally understand that. But I think from coming from an Afrikaner, Afriforum perspective, we're not surprised by it at all, because we've dealt with countless situations where the EFF has marched in Afrikaans schools based on nonsense, bogus claims, a picture taken out of context, absolute nonsense. Where they marshal schools,
or on an old age home to go threaten
old age homes. Let's not even bring that up. My grandma used to be in that old age home. It really gets under my skin. So from our perspective, we're not surprised. It's a pity that they're continuing to do this, but this is what happens. They've been doing it with the Afrikaans community for a while. They keep on getting away with it. Now they're targeting the Indian community.
It's a reality of life now.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. And it's once again because they weren't stopped when they started this racist, race-baiting nonsense. They weren't stopped, and now they're just continuing with it.
And again, this is where it's crucial to have, I mean, I don't think one can overemphasize it. The reason why you have standard operating procedures in place, why you document what happens, why you keep records that are reliable, is that in the event of there being a politicized confrontation, you have got all the evidence and proof on your side to prove what, or rather to tell the true story and to back it up with evidence. Because even in the court of public opinion, we're not even worried about the court of law yet. That stuff matters. And for a lot of people, it might seem like unnecessary effort, but it's there. And I mean, I'm going to go through the Afriforum model of setting up neighborhood watch structures and that, and then we can have this conversation again, like in a couple of weeks, and I can give you feedback, and we can maybe even discuss it, because at this stage, there's lots of guidance on how to start these things. But I think the most important thing is that people need to start, and they need to start now. In your own neighborhood, you've got a similar setup, Jacques, and how did that? Who took responsibility for it in the beginning?
Well, when I moved into the neighborhood where I am now, they just started an Afriforum branch there, and they just started a neighborhood watch. So that was just people who were passionate about it, and they followed through on it. Yeah. So that's the thing. It's people who see what's going on. They realize what the risks are. They realize what the shortcomings in security and policing are, and they choose not to sit around and complain about it, but rather get involved and do something. Something that a lot of commentators on Twitter aren't willing to do. It's easier to sit and complain on social media than actually get in your car and go around and drive patrol at night, and make a difference. So that's the type of people who get involved in.
Exactly, and it's taking active ownership of that space you live in. And because if you don't take active ownership of it, someone else might, or someone else will, and that person might not be someone that you want to take ownership of that space, i.e. they may be a criminal coming to rob your neighborhood or hijack cars or something. And to be frank, I don't see safety and security improving in South Africa. Well, let me rephrase. It will not improve because of the actions of the state. We're facing more rolling SAPS budget cuts. We're facing police that don't have ammunition. That problem
except when it comes to VIP protection, of course, right?
Oh yeah, sorry. We need a caveat, like VIP protection will have a budget increase while the overall budget decreases. The only thing that's going to make a difference is active community participation. And that means taking hands across the board. And I mean, we've got people now that I spoke to 2 weeks ago that were in Soweto, part of this thing, and they are strongly considering signing up with Afriforum. So I'm going to see if I can convince them to just take the plunge, because it would be an absolute, would give me so much joy in my heart if I said, cool, there's an Afriforum neighborhood watch branch in the middle of Soweto near Maponya Mall, and they're running that show.
And they'll be welcome to. They'll really be welcome to anytime.
I mean, that'll make the Daily Maverick and News 24 spit fire. I don't know if they'd be able to handle it. Their heads would explode. So Gerrit asks a good question. He says, if the neighborhood watch has started, what are the laws regarding carrying and maybe forcing to use a personal firearm? You want to take that question, Jacques?
I can answer from my limited perspective, Gerrit. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not legally trained, but as far as I know, the same laws would apply to any civilian use of a firearm. So you would still need to carry concealed if you don't have an open carry permit. You'd still only be allowed to use your firearm to defend your life or someone else's life if necessary. So the basics would still count. There's no, even like private security officials in South Africa still fall under the same regulatory as civilian firearm owners. They don't have special permission like peacekeeping officers or something. So the same laws would apply, but like I said, I'm not a legal advisor or a lawyer at all.
That's exactly how I understand it as well. The only difference between a security officer and a civilian is if the security officer is in uniform, they can carry their company-issued firearm openly as opposed to having to carry it covered. But that's exactly it, Gerrit. So there's no... you have no special powers, but nor do you have any special restrictions. It's exactly the same as Joe Public. We were okay. Thank you. So that kind of answers that question. Afriforum also, I don't recall. Did you? No, it was a SA Agri initiative that had a thing for delayed firearm licenses. You guys didn't have that effort going on, but you have a whole bunch of other stuff that's cracking on in the meantime.
Yeah, I think that was Sai who was pushing that, because we know that's a major problem as well. You know what the police firearm registry looks like. We've seen those pictures, and it's an absolute mess. And how long have they been promising to sort that out now? It's been years.
It's been years, and COVID has been a great excuse for them to increase their so-called mandated timeframes from 90 days to 120, and then it was 90 calendar days, and it changed to 90 working days. So there's no obvious desire to fix it, which is why SAI has their thing. And I'm trying to get them to team up with the South African Arms and Ammunition Dealers Association to Garage Metal Shop. Thank you very much. I appreciate US currency. It becomes more valuable as ours inevitably declines in the money market because of the stupid shit our government keeps doing. So there's at least two efforts ongoing there. But as we enter the final stretch, we are going to be taking some questions. Jacques, except the documentary, what other projects have you guys got ongoing there that you'd like to make people aware of so they can go check it out?
Well, yeah, in terms of firearms, we're obviously fighting these proposed amendments to the new laws as hard as we can. We're trying to broaden and establish our neighborhood watches as far as we can, and we're really inviting everyone to get involved there. We've seen now that it's the only way to do it. You cannot rely on the state or the police to keep you safe. So people need to get involved. And then, Afriforum we've got so many campaigns and so many fights going on. Every day is something new, but it's important work, and we appreciate all the support we get from the public and all our members. And you guys really keep us strong, and we appreciate it.
Yeah, I've been a proud member for a long time. I've lost count now, and it's been an organization. I mean, Jeepers Creepers, you built, Afriforum Solidarity, you guys built a university where the government seems intent on burning theirs down. It's quite, it's quite the contrast between Onsal self and whatever Cyril Ramaphosa's motto is, Tuma Mina, which is send me, but don't send me, send someone else who's not interested in doing the job. Regarding these, so what we've had now with regards to these amendments, we've had at least 150,000 comments just through DRSA alone. There's probably quite a few more. The overwhelming majority is rejects the bill in its entirety. if they do try to push it through, I believe we have some options to. Well, there are many areas where one can fight it, but the one might end up litigating against it, and I think Afriforum was 100% keen for that fight. Obviously, it's not a fight that you would fight alone, because I think there were great many organizations that have that memorandum of understanding alongside you to say we'll all go
Yes,
together.
I think we were 17 or 18 organizations who signed that memorandum of understanding, saying that we're all willing to band together and fight this thing to the very end. Looking at the ANC's track record, that's probably where it's going to go. If you look at how they've been handling expropriation without compensation, for instance. First round of comments, vast majority absolutely set against it. They just ignored it. Okay, let's carry on. Next round of commentary, vast majority of comments absolutely set against it. Now, third round of commentary. So they actually went ahead and published the law. So, let's be realistic. They're probably going to do the same thing with the firearms law. But then we have those numbers, we have those figures, we have all those signatures, and we can go to court and say, look at this. They ignored all these people. So let's hope it doesn't get there. But if it does, we're ready.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, there's no surrender on this. And they also, as much as civil society can only fight so many fights, the government can also only instigate so many before they end up with egg on their face. And I think they understand after what happened a few weeks ago that people they can ban guns tomorrow. No one's going to hand their stuff in. They're going to sit essentially with 3 million criminals that don't have the capacity to.
There's going to be a lot of boating accidents.
And
I'm yet to rivers and lakes.
Exactly. And it might very well cause bigger issues than they already have. So just to answer Dopey Smith, if you are on a strict budget, look at the Taurus products. They're actually huge improvements over their 2012 run that gave them quite a bad reputation, and very well with the money brand new, and they're very well supported. Garage Metal Shop, thank you, Jacques, for your time. This channel is very encouraging. We see many moral family men from many walks of life who want to protect their families, not the hoplophobe narrative. No, we definitely don't do hoplophobia here. We have other sorts of phobias. I've got agoraphobia at the moment, but that's probably due to lockdown. No, so we've got a strong bunch of organizations, 17 that will fight this. Jacques, I don't see anyone asking any specific questions. Anything you'd like to add in the last 8 minutes?
Well, I'd like to say thanks for the opportunity to chat to you guys. It's really a pleasure. And on a personal note, thanks for everything you do in this fight against these draconian laws. You're really putting up a big fight, and you're getting a lot of traction on social media. And thanks for DSA as well for all the submissions that they managed to get hold of. And we need to stay realistically positive, not fall into despair, not panic, stay optimistic, but start working, start outbuilding the decay.
Yep, I think that's the key message here, is the fact that government is irrelevant at this stage. They are weak. They've let everyone down. We need to carry on without them. And the only way you make them irrelevant, if you don't vote them out of power, you just work and you build, and you don't need them at the end of the day. And we can and we will fight this everywhere where we need to. We will have the DRSA executive summary on that campaign this week, and I will send you a copy personally, and then you must just tell me offline who else I need to send it to with you guys, because I'll send it to all of Afriforum if you need it. There's a whole bunch of other people I will also send it to you, because it's a short little brief of exactly what happened and what the comment structure looks like. But I'm happy to say that about 98 to 99% of everyone rejected it fully. I mean, if there are 2% of respondents that accepted it, that would be a lot, which is overwhelming. I mean, how does that compare to the EWC one?
Sorry, come again?
How does that how do those figures compare to the expropriation without compensation one?
Well, the first 2 rounds, we had a lot of comments. Now, unfortunately, it seems like people are a bit getting, like they say in Afrikaans, facefoos. They've done this so many times. Why do they need to continue doing this? And I understand that, people get tired, but it's not the time to get tired now. We cannot afford to lie down and not make a big noise about this. So people really need to put their names to that as well.
Yeah, that's the thing, guys. Please go out there, have your say about the 3rd round expropriation without compensation. Your voice does matter, but if you don't make your voice heard, then it doesn't matter. And the biggest threat to our democracy and to our civil rights and our constitutional protected rights, supposedly called constitutionally protected rights, is not the tyrants in government, it's citizens who are apathetic. And the only way you get out of apathy is to believe that your voice matters, encourage others that they need to make theirs heard as well, and then we can make a meaningful difference. Kermit says, Jacques, bly polities incorrek.
Dankie, Kermit. Bly jy kyk het.
Ellen says the same thing. Yeah, ek moet sê, ek is ook 'n groot aanhanger. I'm a big fan of those chats. Their production quality is far higher than mine. So I'm very honored that you're here on a stream with my bad lighting.
No, it's an absolute pleasure.
Helgard said, just so tired of the old excuse, maar ek betaal mos belasting.
Well, I get that, but it's a valid point, and it is frustrating. I mean, if I see the chunk that gets taken from my money every month, and I know where it's getting spent, I know it's going into caders, Mercedes, and fancy suits and stuff. It really makes you moeder, right? I'm sorry, that's the nicest Afrikaans way I can describe it. But there's no point in sitting there and complaining about that. It is the situation. What are we going to do to fix it?
That's exactly it. Mr. Julius, great name, 1217, where will the documentary be available?
Mr. Julius, it will be available on Afriforum's YouTube channel, and the first episode will be released at the end of August. We will release an episode every week after that.
Fantastic. So Afriforum's YouTube channel, you literally just go to YouTube and hang on a sec, just because we can do this. Let me just actually write it in here. This is how you spell Afriforum, and if you put that in there, you will find what you're looking for, which is hopefully the Afriforum documentary. Paul Wolmeran said, bye dankie for the sterling job we do. Well, thank you for your thank you as well, Jacques. I appreciate it.
Don't give up, Paul. Thanks for the support, man.
Well, we are here because we like being here. And I think on that bombshell, Jacques, dit was 'n absolute eer en plesier om jou vanaand te hê. It was great chatting to you.
Thank you very much.
I would love to have you on again, and I'm dead serious about giving you proper on-air feedback about the Afriforum Neighborhood Watch thing. I'm convinced it's going to be a positive experience, and just how to apply it step by step. In fact, I might actually do a write-up on explaining the process so that hopefully that encourages more people to do it.
Awesome.
I believe it is growing quite fast.
Awesome. Thank you so much, man. And next time I'm on the Western Cape, I'll give you a ring. We can go and have a beer in person.
Absolutely, and screw the alcohol ban. We'll find a spot. Ladies, gentlemen, and others, thank you for tuning in tonight. I'll see you again tomorrow night with the usual suspects, Temba and Khofu. And stay safe, stay warm, look after yourselves. En ons sal saam, and we will build. Jacques, dankie vir jou.